Item forget. Okay, yay. So today is Friday, a short class, but we have a short task ahead of us. I want to mostly today go over a unit analysis, because I hear a lot of people saying they need more unit analysis. If people need more of the rest of the mad science measurement, the perimeter and area and circles and things, let me know. But I haven't by ear or email heard that type of stuff yet. So I'm not going to do that unless people say, yes, yes, let's do more about perimeter and area and circumference.
That would be helpful.
That would be helpful. Okay, so we'll do some of that too. Not sure if it'll happen today. The little announcement is that I need to do two things. One, I'm making plans for how I'll grade differently next term. So there's now a box in the achievement list saying how I'm going to add some achievements and rearrange them and so on. You can ignore this completely. It's not about you this term. I just need a place to have my thoughts on paper, so otherwise they will disappear. If you are interested in like how to make grading happen, you're welcome to read that and give me your feedback, but I am not going to say that's part of your job. Also, on the calendar, then, so we've had Mad Science Fractions was due last week. We haven't had the rest of Mad Science due. So I need to know if there is, at the top here, questions people have about mad science percentages before we dive into the unit analysis and perimeter and area. So anyone have any more questions about percentages? No, percentages are good. Okay, so that will be due in a week then. A lot of people have turned it in already, but now it actually has a due date. Okay, measurement. So unit analysis is a process, as I mentioned before. It's not a process that helps you understand why things work. It's just the efficient way to do things. And it uses fraction multiplication. Yes?
Sorry, you said which columns?
The percentages for the second section. So measurement, well, fraction multiplication is nice because the calculator does almost all the work. You multiply across the top, the calculator does that. You multiply across the bottom, the calculator does that. To turn it into a decimal, you do top divided by bottom, the calculator does that. So this sounds pretty good. It, for easy problems, is extra work, extra writing, but that's okay because you can't really make a mistake using the process except in the very beginning if you are flipped upside down. And since you can't make a mistake, doing a little extra writing, especially on a test when our brains tend to shut down a little, is nice to have a fail-safe way of doing things. So we've already learned other ways to do some of the easy problems, like changing feet into yards, but I'm going to show you an easy one with this way. And if you like your other way better, that is fine. This is just, I want to start with an easy problem. And so that's what I'll do. So the unit analysis has these steps, and I will again copy them onto our board.
Can you do
And
number 7? Sorry, can you do number 7 on percentages?
at the end,
Okay.
I don't want to
Sorry.
ruin what I'm doing here. So the 5 steps are kind of not helpful when they're just floating about in space as words. So I'm going to demonstrate them. And the problem I think I will do is, let's do 20 feet equals how many yards. And again, this is not a hard problem. It's not one we need unit analysis for. We're just going to either multiply or divide by 3 because there's 3 feet in a yard. And if you have some way of knowing whether you're multiplying or dividing, you could do this nicely. But if your brain is shutting down on a test and you can't get this in your head, am I multiplying, am I dividing? and so on, then this will help you. I should make that, whoops, look nicer. Okay, so my first step is to write what I am given as a fraction. So I'm going to write 20 feet, and since it's not a fraction, I'll put it over 1 to make it a fraction. If the thing they gave you was already a fraction, like 30 miles per hour, then you would just write it. 30 miles would be on the top and the hour would be on the bottom. So if it is a fraction, you just write it. If it's not, like in this case, put it over 1. Then we're thinking, I want to change one measurement unit into the other. And the nice thing that I can't do wrong is cross out things as if I was canceling terms. So all I have to remember is that if I have something in the top of a bunch of fractions, I can only cancel it with something in the bottom. In this case, feet is in the top, so I need a feet in the bottom, and then I can cancel them. What do I want to change feet into? Do I know how to go directly to my goal? Can I get from feet to yards? So sure, we know there's 3 feet in a yard, so I write my yard up here. Sometimes one step isn't enough. The time you actually need unit analysis, one step isn't enough. But for this easy problem, one step is all I need. I have yards, my goal is yards, I am done. Part 3, I'm going to say 1 yard is 3 feet. And again, in Math 20, you're only responsible for memorizing the things that stay within one measurement unit. And since the King Henry scoot trick takes care of the SI or metric system, then you really only have to memorize the standard system. So parts of a gallon, feet, yards, miles, ounces and pounds. My 4th step is to multiply. So going across the top, 20 times 1 is 20. Feet is gone. The only word that's left is yards. 3 times 1 is 3. And there's nothing left word-wise on the bottom. And then to simplify, I do top divided by bottom. That's how we've been changing any fraction into a decimal. If I had some actual situation, I would know if I should round it to 7 or 6.7 or whatever. I'm not going to worry about rounding, but that's not the point today. Question?
At the end of my calculation, it's 6.867. So do you write down the 7?
No, because the line over the 6 means it goes on forever. There's actually no 7. The calculator is just showing you that because it runs out of room. So it rounds the last one. So, but we probably don't have infinite precision. That's just not how the real world works. So I am writing the 6 repeating symbol because I'm in a math class and not because anyone in my job would actually want that. But okay, enough about the rounding. So the process of unit analysis, all there on one screen. Questions about any color, any step of this process? Yes, we'll certainly do a harder one. Since not everyone was here the day we did this the first time, I'm starting this one. Everyone okay with this one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's make up a new one. So we have a faucet that's dripping, and let's say that it has so many cups. How many cups in an hour? How big is our drip? 15. That's a very big trip. Okay. So I've tasked my kid to sit there with a 1 cup measure, and every time it fills up, they make a mark on a paper. And after an hour, I'm surprised that they have 15 cups there. So I'm wondering how many gallons per day is this? How much water am I wasting if I can't figure my trip? Everyone happy with my question so far? Okay, so I start by writing my thing as a fraction. It already is a fraction. I want to get rid of cups and I want to get rid of hours. It doesn't matter which thing I cancel out first. I just pick. So cups. Okay, so I have a cups on the top. So what do I have to do? Cups on the bottom. Can I go from cups to gallons? Sure, I know that one. So I'm halfway done. I have the gallons on top like I want. Okay, what's my next part? I'm still green. Get rid of the hours. I have an hour on the bottom, so I need an hour on the top. Can I go from hours to days? Sure, I know that one. So now I have days on the bottom. That's what I want. So I'm done with my green step. I have a plan that gets me with gallons on the top and days on the bottom. That's what I want. Okay, now I'm going to put in my numbers. 1 gallon is 16 cups. 24 hours is a day. Remember, if on a test, on the final, you somehow can't remember these things, because sometimes our brains do weird things on a test, just make up numbers. If you put a 12 here instead of a 16 because you weren't sure and you're just guessing, just make a note. I can't remember, I'm guessing 12. And I can give you good partial credit because you're doing the part I care about correctly, even if your number is below. But best if you get full credit.
For sure.
Okay, now I need to multiply. So on the top, I have a 15 times a 1 times a 24. If you liked writing the times 1, you could put it in there. All the words are gone in top, but gallons. On the bottom, I just have a 16 times a 1 times a 1. And all the words are gone but days. And almost everyone likes me. Let me scroll down to keep it as much on one screen as I can. No, I don't need to. Okay, this step here, I don't want orange. I am writing because I'm lecturing. There is no need for you to write that. When you're just doing this homework on a test, you have your calculator, you can do 15 times 24 and get to the 360 right away. Does that make sense? So this is just, for me, being clear. For you, a waste of time. questions on that one? Okay, let's do one more. Whoops, that's not what I want. Okay, what are we switching from and to? Should we do car speed? Should we do a gas mileage? We do homework problems. Let's say we have a student who does 15 problems in 1 hour. They're able to study for 4 hours a week. And one term is 10 weeks. So how many homework problems will this student do during the whole term? Sound like a reasonable problem? Okay, so I need to start by writing something as a fraction. So I have 3 rates here. I am picking something that has unit conversions that I'm putting on the paper to confuse you, rather than 24 hours a day, which we just knew in our heads and it wasn't there on the paper to start with. So which one of these would I start with?
Hours.
How many weeks?
Problems per hour.
Hours in a week.
It's sort of a trick question. It actually doesn't matter which we start with. What matters is where am I trying to get, right? This is the important thing. I want gallons per day. I want yards, right? My goal is what tells me what to do. So in this one, it's goal is problems per term. So that means as long as I start with problems on the top or terms on the bottom, I'll be okay. The only way I can mess this up is if I started with one of these things and had problems on the bottom, or I had terms on the top. And then once I did my stuff, I would say, oops, I'm upside down. And I'd have to erase it and start over. So you'd catch your mistake. You wouldn't get the problem wrong, but you'd waste some time on the test. So I want problems per term. So anything that starts in that pattern is hunky-dory. So should we just start with this one because it has problems on top? Okay, I have the problems on top like I want, so I'm sort of halfway there already. So I only need to change the hour. What's my first step?
My hours a day.
Yeah, I want to get rid of hours. And what I know is here, that each week they can do 4 hours of homework. It's also true that there's 24 hours in a day, but that's not part of this problem. Everyone see my red herring here? So in this student's life, what matters is that each week they have, whoops. So if we want to relabel things to make it more clear that 24 hours a day is not part of what's happening. The student has other things going on than being a homework machine. Okay, so that's gotten us out of hours. I don't want problems per week. I want problems per term.
So
So,
weeks in a term.
yeah, so I need to say, let's get rid of week. Week is on the bottom. So put weeks on the top, so it'll cancel and term goes down there. Now you could see what we could have done wrong, that this one is upside down. Everyone see that? If I had started with that, I would have gotten terms per problem instead of problems per term and said, oh, whoops, and you have to start over. Again, you'd notice it. It's not like you would be getting the problem wrong, but you would waste some time because you had to go back and start over. Okay, now I have my plan. I have problems on top, I have terms on bottom. Everything is good. So I will take the time to fill in the 4 and the 1, and to fill in the 1 and the 10. And then I'm changing my colors as I go. So this was 15 times 4 on the top. And 1 times 1 times 10 on the bottom. What happened to,
Isn't it just one term?
yeah, I did this backwards. This should be 10 weeks in a term, not the other way around. Go away thing here. So they do more than 6 total. Okay, so this was 10 weeks in one term. So 10 and 1, so 150. Problems for one term. There we go. Top divided by bottom in this case, well, if the bottom is 1, then dividing by 1 doesn't change anything.
Go back over the.
Yeah, you can go back.
Yeah, go back. Yeah, my error messed you up.
So what did we do?
Oops, I forgot the 4, didn't
That's what
I?
I'm saying. That's what I'm, yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm a terrible person.
I was just like, I was like, did I just get this wrong?
So really, it'd be 600.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, 600.
I was like, I thought it was good. I
Ta-da.
thought I was getting it
Okay.
right.
You are more alert than me.
I think it's just being asked.
Yeah, I know, right?
I had no lunch. I had meetings this morning, so that's why my brain is. But my excuse doesn't matter. I should do this. Okay, it's all part of a great pedagogy to show you that accuracy isn't what makes you a mathematician, but teamwork.
How long did you study math?
How long did I study math? I got my master's, and I, at that point, had a choice. I was at UC Santa Barbara. I was sort of taking over their Math for Elementary School Teachers program because none of the real faculty wanted to do that. And I went to a conference all about how to teach that kind of thing better. And I realized I could either spend 4 years on one homework problem, which is basically what a PhD in math is, or I could learn about how to actually relate to people and teach. And the second just seemed a lot more interesting. So I stopped with my master's and went into becoming a teacher. So, okay, so interesting story time. Yes, nap time, you can now tune out. So can I make this bigger? Zoom. Tools. Where? No. How do I make it bigger? Ah, there. No, this isn't the one that has. Okay, so I have a few copies of this. If you share with your neighbor. So in the 16th century, if you were a mathematician, then you wanted to get paid and not starve. And the way you would do this, I have two more. Anyone else want their own copy? So the way you would do this is by tutoring children of rich people, or maybe writing a book, but there weren't that many books. And how would the rich people know about you to hire you as their tutor? You would challenge other mathematicians to math duels, usually waging a dinner. And if I could do your problems faster than you could do my problems, you'd take me out to dinner and there'd be publicity and so on. It was sort of like the YouTubers of the 16th century math. So I'm just going to read this out and you can chuckle along. So about 1515, Scipio del Ferro, forgive me for not pronouncing Italian names correctly, he solved the cubic equation, x cubed plus mx equals n, basing his work on other earlier Arabic sources. And he didn't publish this result, because if you publish it, then everyone would know your secret and you couldn't win all your math duels and get free dinners and publicity. But he did teach it to his pupil, Antonio Fiore. Then a few years later, someone named Tartaglia, the stutterer, because the French army attacked his town when he was young, discovered a very similar one. If you compare these, you will see that this one has an x squared and this one has an x. So they each know how to do a slightly different kind of math problem. That's all that you care about right now. So they challenged each other to a duel. They gave each other 40 problems, and they had a month to do this. And Tartaglia found a solution to his opponent's problems and could do all of that. And once he found the solution, it just took him 2 hours to grind through the algebra. And Fiore couldn't figure out what to do, and he lost. So far, so good. Cardano, you'll also find his name just Cardon if you want to find more about him. If you ever have to do a history of math paper in some other class, Cardon is fascinating. He was a scoundrel. He received a doctorate, and he was a professor of mathematics at 3 different places, but had to leave because of scandals. He used some false bribes and political connections to squeeze the solution to one of those things from Tartaglia, who just lost the duel. And he promised he'd never reveal it. He would only write it down in code. But of course, he shared it with his student, whose name was Ferrari. I don't know when Ferrari family was in Italy, if the car is about this at all, but it's not this particular one, I'm pretty sure. And a few years later, he even solved the one with a 4th power to it. And Cardano published his Latin treatise about algebra, and the first great Latin work about this kind of math. And it contained the solution to the problem that he had promised Tartaglia would never go public. And it also contains his student's solution for the even harder one. So Tartaglia was given credit for her work, but he was upset he couldn't win those math duels against almost everyone else in Europe anymore, because they all knew his secret. So Ferrari, the student of the publishing scoundrel, came, and they said, no, you must have got your stuff from someone else. You were plagiarizing too. They had a bitter fight. Ferrari was a famous dueler, and some reports think that shots were fired. And eventually there was another duel. Tartaglia lost a second time. He lost his university job, and life was terrible ever after. Cardano published again the first theory of probability, but eventually he was forbidden to lecture or publish books because no one liked him. He kept getting in trouble. He was imprisoned. At this point, the Catholic Church thought that astrology was real, horoscopes were good. So Cardano said, great, let's figure out, since we know when he was born, what Jesus' horoscope would be and what would happen in his life, which doesn't match up to what actually happened. And so the Pope got upset. And anyway, Cardano was reported to have correctly predicted the exact date of his own death. He did that by committing suicide.
Yikes.
So Viette, the last one, took a position against tutoring someone's daughter. She would become Catherine of Parthenay, if you know that name. he moved to Paris and he published and he solved some codes for Henry III. And he was so good at deciphering military codes that he got accused of witchcraft. And again, the Pope had to get involved. So he published the Introduction to the Analytic Art, and he was the one who introduced modern algebraic notations. Everything else was in complete sentences up to this date. If you have a value and multiply it by itself 3 times and add this other number, you could imagine trying to solve math if you couldn't actually write an equation down. So this was a huge thing when sort of modern algebraic letters and numbers, formulas the way we want was invented. And he began doing lecture tours and became really famous. So the whole point of this is now for your weekly quiz, you don't care about any of these people, you are going to get in groups, 3 or 4. You could work by yourself if you really want to, but it's not fun. I don't have an entire dinner, but I have a bag full of sea salt chocolates from Costco, and challenge each other to math duels. You're going to make 3 problems that are this kind of thing, the unit analysis problems, and then give them to another group and see if they can solve them and see which group is faster. And somehow we'll all agree who gets to eat the chocolate without fighting and having duels by the end. Okay, so wait, before we start talking, how much time should I give each group to make up the 3 problems? Is 15 minutes going to be enough? You have to solve your own problems. You can't challenge people to problems that you don't know the answer to with confidence.
So we have to solve it and then they solve it?
Yes, you're going to, in 15 minutes, we can run late if we need to, but that might be enough time. You're going to make up 3 unit analysis problems, solve them yourself, and then write just the problems, not the answers, on another paper. And then find a group that hasn't traded yet, trade your problem papers, and then before the end of class, see who can solve the other person's 3 problems. Make sense?
All right, what's on the line?
What's in the bag of chocolates? That's the
So
only.
no points, no credit?
No.
Okay.
Well, it is. This will count as a pop quiz. So, but you've done this already.
It's like a word itself.
So we are going to.
Keep it up there, don't leave it.
So we This was something like. And almost
No one from this mega group wants to go to that hour and- It's only 2 hours there. You want to go help the 2 of them? Okay. Abdullah's gonna come help you. Or you help him. They can solve 2 problems, and then without the solution. Is it okay if I turn off the recording? So working? I will. Resume recording. Tell me, let's start with the big group here on the left. What are your problems that we can all work on over the weekend and talk about when I see you on Monday? Or
Well, we had 15 yards in 6 minutes. How many miles per hour?
So 15 yards in 6 minutes is how many miles per hour? A great question. Okay, another one.
36 inches, every 30 minutes.
36 inches every 30 minutes is
Oh, it's
how much of what?
Feet over hours.
How many feet per hour? Okay, that's good too. What other problems did groups have? Yes.
3 miles an hour is how many people?
3 miles an hour is how many feet per second? Okay,
Let's see. 5 cups in 1 hour, how many gallons in 1 day? It's kind of so.
5 cups every hour
And how many
is how many gallons a day?
I just-
Okay, Samantha had a neat one. Some poor person gets 5 hours of sleep every 12 days. How much is this in hours of sleep per year?
Sounds like me every single day. I only sleep for about 2-3 hours.
Another problem that a group had.
A cat walks 6 miles every day. How many miles does it walk?
6 miles every 1 day is how much in miles? Now, you asked a different thing of 2 years. I'm not allowed to put a number here yet. That's a different kind of problem.
Okay, 1 year.
But we could do 1 year. We'll learn that later. Okay, have a good